everybody, and welcome to Mosh Talks with me, Beez, right here on Knotfest.com or the Knotfest YouTube channel, wherever you are getting us. This is our first proper episode. So if you joined us last week for the pilot, thank you. You can see I'm not filming it on an actual potato this week. So thanks for being with us. We will ordinarily be with you on a Tuesday, but obviously everyone at Knotfest was observing Blackout Tuesday. So this week, 24 hours later than usual, but we make up for it with a seriously stacked lineup. So joining us on today's show, first up, Winston McCall from Parkway Drive is going to be here. I start grilling him about new material, and he takes us inside their new documentary, Viva the Underdogs. After that, Nergal from Behemoth joins us quite literally from the road. It was slightly terrifying, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. He's talking about Behemoth's new EP, A Forest, so naturally we talk a little bit about The Cure. There is a world exclusive about Behemoth's upcoming touring plans, and we get inside his Me and That Man project with some seriously exciting vibes coming from that. We also talked to Ben Bruce from Asking Alexandria. Their new album, Like a House on Fire, has been something of a controversial record, so we ask him some pretty difficult questions. Jacob Bannon is going to be here, and I would ordinarily say I don't really know where to start with how good that chat was, but I do. We spoke about Converge's upcoming Blood Moon project. We also get inside his new Umbra Vitae band, and there's another world exclusive because he reveals a brand new band that he's in. That's coming up later on. And last but not least, Anders from In Flames is here. In Flames going to be celebrating 20 years of Clayman this year, so we go inside only for the week. It is one of the biggest songs on that album. Anders joins us for that, and he will also be joining me on Friday right here on Knotfest.com. Yes, indeed, we are going to be hosting In Flames' headline set from Varken in 2018, and if that wasn't enough, Anders joins me for an exclusive chat that you will only see on that stream. That is happening this Friday, Knotfest.com, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central European, and that is 7 p.m. for all my mates back home in the UK. Right, that was a lot of news. First up, we are joined by Winston McCall of Parkway Drive. Now, I've known Winston for quite a while, and it has been brilliant to see the success of Parkway Drive in recent years, especially with Ire and Reverence, these last two albums. Seeing the whole world fall in love with Parkway Drive has been amazing. It is captured brilliantly on their Viva the Underdogs documentary. You can check that out now, and you can check this out right now. Me talking to Winston McCall, where I really do grill him about new material. Winston McCall of Parkway Drive fame. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Doing pretty good. Can't complain.
How's lockdown been, man? Like, have you got any kind of weird hobbies in? What's the most eventful thing that's happened?
We're bad people to ask how's lockdown been if you don't want to feel jealous, because we kind of haven't really felt it that much and have just been surfing a lot and playing music. So yeah, like that's like for real. It's we like our town just locked down really hard because we're in a full tourist town, so they shut the borders of the town. So it was basically locals only. Like took us back 30 years into the past, and it was feeling very safe in town. And then the surf was really good, and the cops Australia was literally like, you can't do this, you can't do that, but you can exercise. You can't swim at the beach, but you can surf. So it's like, okay, well, we're getting something out of it. So yeah.
Wait, is this the most you've been home in like forever?
17 years. So the longest we've been home in 17 years. It was crazy. It clicked in because we actually had a fair bit of time after Euro festivals. We played 3 festivals in Australia in like I think 8 months, and that originally was a lot of time off. So as soon as this kicked in, it's really, really strange. I feel so disconnected from the idea of being on stage, and then it really hit like hey, you haven't stopped for 17 years. Like, that's a really large amount of time to have constant touring be a part of who you are.
What's it done to your noggin? Have you been all right being off the road?
It's been really, really nice. Like, it has been great. To be honest, we were planning on doing this next year. Like, we sat down a couple of years ago and we're like, we have to have a break at some point, because it's as much as we love doing it, we just wanted that circuit breaker. So we've been lucky in the sense of being able to just kind of flip 2 years worth of timetables and hope we're coming out good at the other end of it. But it's nice. It is just nice being home. And it's weird because right now, in terms of the creative side of things, I'm just trying to soak myself in influences from everywhere and see what starts coming out in terms of creation that doesn't have like an end point. Like, it's not like, yo, you got to tour in 6 months, you've got to create some stuff, and then in 9 months you're going to be in a studio and you're going to be doing this. Right now we don't know when any of this stuff is kicking back off. So we literally can't leave our country. Our borders are shut. So even if we wanted to go and do something, we can't. So we just, for me, I'm still creative, but it's not with the same constraints. So it's been really weird watching how my brain switches with that.
So, what's been rising to the fore then? Because you've taken quite a lot of different stylistics over the years that have kind of formed this new vocal style, something I want to talk to you about a little bit later on, actually. Now that you're in creative mode again, what's been coming to the fore in terms of influence listening to?
Everything, to be honest. It's very interesting sitting back and allowing, I guess, random thought to drive the actual sound and following that thread. Because I think when you're constantly on the road and you're constantly in this media driven, like, everything, we're bombarded with sounds and everything going on within the world, that I think it's taken something like this to realize the amount of stimulation we have. So when it's taken away, it gives you a kind of an idea to be able to trace where thought and patterns are coming from. So that's on a very different level from just like, I want it to sound orchestral, or I want it to sound, I don't know, trap or something like that. It's literally just, why is my brain attracted to this beat? Why is my brain attracted to this style of vocals? What sound is driving me with this? And then following those patterns. So I don't know. There's things that I've picked up that I've never picked up before with certain bands, with certain styles of their writing, which has made me really dissect why certain things connect with me. So that's where I'm going from. I think it's trying to find a more primal connection to the actual music.
It's interesting to me because you've had such an evolution as a vocalist. In fact, it's only a couple of days ago on the podcast that I was talking about the fact that it's true, Winston. Because you've had so much, success on this run, it feels like you found a sweet spot for people that are not about your traditional clean singing vocals. Did you feel that? Did you feel like a bigger connection from a vocal standpoint on this last, particularly Reverence?
Yeah, 100%. The whole idea when it all started switching for me vocally was to maintain the essence and the fuel behind the performance and the integrity and the character behind it, and really committing to that character, but at the same time making sure it's understandable and it's relatable. Because for me, I found myself this kind of goes for everything within Parkway. We found that at one point in time, people would look to us and go, Parkway are heavy, really, really heavy. They're at the forefront of heavy music. And then the next level of heaviness came along and it got pushed faster and heavier. Then the next level and the next level. And it got so insane that it was something that I no longer related to because it didn't connect with me on an understandable level, which is not the same for everyone. But for me personally, it was about taking that thing which we always had, which was the aggression and the adrenaline, and tying all of those things in in a way that still was able to gel with the other music aspects that we had, and still not like, if you're going to bring melody in, it doesn't have to be sugar. Like, it just doesn't have to be sugar. That's the thing. It's not like we're going to have a melodic part. All right, it has to sound like pop punk. So like, which was so much of the thing. It was just like, oh, it going heavy pop punk part for some apparent reason. Like, someone all of a sudden sounds like 182 has been dragged into this studio and done a bad impression.
Yeah.
So that was it. Like, and that led me down the road of like dragging the melody in, but in a way that didn't dilute from like, it doesn't dilute the message and it doesn't dilute the intention. And that was what was always breaking me between, like, I'd never understood the intention behind like brutal vocals to the point of me not even understanding what you say. I'm like, that's not brutal. That's just like, it's heavy, but it's not brutal to me because I can't understand what you're saying. Like, I have a connection to the lyrics. And then hearing someone sing some brutal words in the style of a pop punk chorus in the middle of something that was blasting along 5 minutes ago does not connect with me either, because I'm like, this just sounds phony. So it was just finding a different way to channel that, and it came out weird, and I'm like, it definitely threw people, but that's the thing, and it's been following that the entire time, like the connection to the character and the intent. So and here we end up.
I mean, like, I was going to save talking about new material till later, but seeing as we're here, I think because we've spoken so much, like, prior to and around the release of albums so much over the years, one of the things that really stands out in that time was you spoke about the evolution of Vice grips. And that felt like a real moment when that went from demo to the version we know and love today, right? Have you... now I know that you're writing. Are we pre or post Eureka this time out?
Pre or post what?
Eureka! You know a Eureka moment, surely, right?
Oh, yeah. Like, the thing is, I'm not sure, because I'm not sure... it's not like there's just been one moment kind of thing in terms of having the spark like that. When we talk about that being like that Vice grip moment and us really committing to something very different being a Eureka moment, that was a very big one. But at that point, like, I think at that point it was so big because our minds were shut to the concept of something like that ever happening. Whereas now I find those moments happen more frequently, and they're probably just as big, but we don't acknowledge them in the same way simply because our minds are open to the idea of this being whatever the hell we want it to be. So in terms of writing new material, does that mean like I think we're now more open to just difference in general, like the idea of Parkway being a very varied soundscape, and us fully committing to those ideas simply based on us wanting to write that music is 100% on the table. So it wouldn't surprise me if like the next thing you hear from us, you're just like, holy crap, that sounds like 10 different Eureka moments, which I never saw coming. Yeah. But us just going, yeah, that's what we wanted us to do.
Something I love about doing this interview the week after. So I was talking to Matt from Trivium last week, and what I think is interesting about where they are at creatively is that they have pushed their style into so many different ways over a long career that they now kind of feel like they're cribbing from various different bits of their career. Whereas with Parkway, I feel like you are still entering those unknown terrains. Is that fair about where we're going?
Yeah, 100%. But at the same point, there's other things which we're looking at with the writing process in terms of what we've already done. There's like some of the stuff, like we've written a very small amount of music at this point in time, but definitely like consciously during that process already, we've been like, okay, well, we don't want it to sound like, hey, that's a reference from that old thing we've done and that one thing only. Like there's bits of styles that we've used in the past being pushed together in ways that we've never pushed them together before. So that goes in this, like tandem with you are bringing something completely new in as well. So it's not like we've just got the things which were newer over the last few years for us, which are now more of a staple, and just kind of let them sit in their one form. Those forms are still being evolved as well as still going out and dragging in these other influences. It's just like, if we were sitting in a house originally, we were sitting in a house where all the doors and the windows were kind of closed, and occasionally you'd crack one and an influence would waft in. And these days we kind of sit there with everything just open, and the sunshine and the rain and all of the elements just flood in, and we just sit there and roll with it.
Mate, I'm going to leave it at that, because come on, there has to be some surprises when we get there when it comes to that. We should talk a little bit about Viva the Underdog, since that's out now fully. Like, you can get it wherever you get your movies and all the rest of it. This is a third Parkway Drive documentary. Was the thinking behind doing one right now? This last 2 album campaigns have been insane to watch what's happened to you. Like, did it feel like the right time to document what's happened from Home to the Heartless to where we are on Viva the Underdogs?
Yeah, I think so. Like, for us, we found that the thing we've always loved about this band has been that people understand who we are and understand the journey that we've been on and have been invested in that. And rightly so. Like, it's been driven by the people at the shows and the people listening to the music and the people making the connections. Like, there's no outside force pushing us forward other than that human, like, growing surge, which is that connection. But when you don't release something like a visual medium for 7 years, which was the last thing was Homes for the Heartless, we still had people going, "Oh man, I love you guys because like you sleep on the floor, you do this, and why don't you come and play my basement?" I'm like, because my bones would break and I'm old now. And, we wanted people to catch up, and we wanted people to also understand where we were and why we were here, and not feel that disconnect of going, "Man, I don't understand why you're doing what you do now in the capacity that you do, because I watched you on a DVD that was based 7 years ago." Because for us, this has been a constant thing, and the passion that we have now is only greater than it ever was in the past. And what we want to bring is, like, we only want to push forwards. That's the thing. So to have people be able to understand that and take pride in it and invest in it and do it in that way was basically the goal of the entire thing, was to bring people in even further and go, yep, what you see on stage is nuts, but it's not done because we just want to be some wanky rock stars.
Yeah.
There's never been a point where it's like, yo, I want to be Kiss. Give me $1 million. Like, make me some action figures. It's been like, no, like, the opportunity's there to stand for something more and to give people something more. So that's what we're going to do. And if you didn't get why, now you can.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and I can definitely think, like, as someone that knows yourself and some of the other boys a little bit, like, I feel like you get a real kinship for Parkway Drive. Something that's always existed at live shows for your band is a real kinship between fan and band, but not, there's something about you as a group of humans in a band that it doesn't feel like your stage is a pedestal, and I think that's a big part of what Parkway Drive are.
100%, yeah, and that's it. And like, the thing is, like, there comes a point when it came a point for us when it gets so big that you really do have to look at opportunities at hand and what you want to do, and how you want to do it. And the idea of playing to 10,000 people or 5,000 people and still just blowing it off, or not putting the effort into creating something or harnessing what you're already creating sonically and visually is, I don't know, it's, why not put the effort in? That's the thing. But obviously, if people don't understand change, then they can second guess the connection. Unless you rock up to the show and you feel the connection and you understand that, it can be lost in the image of just like, they've changed, look at them now. And I'm like, yeah, look at a picture, but rocking up to the gig, like, the vibe is the same. It's just way more intense. So there you go. Now you have a movie of it and how we put it together.
I think something that that really stands out when it comes to the DVD and your trajectory as a band is that the world of heavy music, like your traditional heavy music fan, your traditional metalhead, seems to have really taken to Parkway Drive, and it warms my heart to say it. Did you feel that shift during these last two album cycles, particularly? Like, wow, there are people that I never in a million years thought would love Parkway the way that I do, and now we're all here together.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Like, you see it on and that's why Wacken was such a big deal for us, and putting that as like the center point and like the big third act of this movie was really the full holy shit, like there has been an embracing of this band to a degree which we can no longer kind of question, because this band has been through every era of evolution, from literally starting in a small town with kids to touring the world and no one knowing who we are, and still playing a type of music which was seen as like invalid, a version of another type of music which has very deep roots and deep culture. So for us to get to a point where, yeah, you see that groundswell and that embrace and that understanding of different people in a culture that is already different, does make you feel like it warms your heart. Like, it really does. It's such an amazing feeling, because that was we only ever had that intent in the first place, but it is, I don't know. It's just something that you'd never expect to that degree until it happens to you, because how can you imagine something like that, I guess?
Do you feel like you'll have even more kinship with Germany now that you've started singing your songs in their mother tongue? How are you with foreign languages? Have you done a foreign language since school, or do you speak any other language?
Not since school. Like, I'm really good at saying like thank you and hello in like 5 different languages. Like, I studied Japanese for 4 years in high school, and like remember little parts of it. Yeah. And I speak tiny bits of German, and I told myself during lockdown I'd learn German, and I still haven't. But my hope was that we would be able to give that back, and have me singing in their language and doing it as like the most amount of integral justice as possible to their language, was to be able to give back out of respect and out of being able to have that connection be even greater. So we'll see. Like, I was so pumped for this European tour, because we're doing those songs in German, like straight up. We're going to be playing them live, and I'm going to be singing them, and like people will be able to get this gift.
Yeah.
And then COVID came along and fucked that whole thing up. So yeah, but we'll see. I hope it's something we can do when we're back.
Well, fingers crossed, man. Is it all looking like the things that have been scheduled are going to be rescheduled? And but I guess what I'm asking, has your time off just moved from 2021 to 2020, and then it will be back in again?
That's the idea. Like, basically we've taken 2021 and put it in 2020, and we've just flipped the whole thing. So everything's just hopefully been rescheduled. But at this point in time, who knows, man? Like, it seems like the entertainment industry is like last in line for any kind of, okay, you can go back and do your thing. And until then, we just keep rolling with it, and we keep just planning and like sharpening the knives and sharpening the skills until you come back. And you just best believe that when we come back, we're gonna be damn sharp.
Well, we can't wait for you to come back. Viva the Underdogs is out now. Make sure you go check it out. Winston, cheers for your time today, man.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Winston McCall there from Parkway Drive, and I really do mean it. Go and check out their new documentary, Viva the Underdogs. I think it does a really brilliant job of getting inside the essence of who they are as people, and as well as that, it's a brilliant live show at Wacken Festival, and stealing the whole show Winston McCall's mum. So if that's not a reason to rent Viva the Underdogs, I don't know what is. Okay, next up, Nergal from Behemoth joins me, and Behemoth have shown their fearlessness in the last week by releasing an EP covering one of the world's most beloved bands, but they do it in sensational fashion. The new Behemoth EP is called A Forest because they've covered A Forest by The Cure, but we talk about that. There's also some really exciting news about Nergal's Me and That Man project. You could see just how stoked he is about it. Some pretty interesting touring news, but yeah, touring news. But yeah, that's enough waffle from me. Nergal from Behemoth, drive safely. Okay, life on the road, quite literally, with Nergal. How you doing, man?
I'm actually great, man. I'm driving from one of my flats to the other one now. Just spent like a week in Sopot by the sea, and now I'm going back to Warsaw. Yeah, just, it's a beautiful day. It's 24 Celsius. It's your weatherman.
I guess like the place that we wanted to start was with you having just released this bunch of Cure covers. Where did your love for that band start? Because there's so many songwriters in our world that have such a extreme love for the Cure, despite them not being a band that take bands from our world out on tour or playing Donington. There are so many bands from our world that love the Cure. What is it about their songwriting in particular that kind of resonates with you?
I think it's one of those bands, along with Depeche Mode and Bauhaus and I don't know, like Behemoth and Nick Cave and few others that are able to create a certain darkness and express it in a more mainstream way, so to say, without losing that edge, without losing the atmosphere. The band that is able to write songs and still, sound sinister and creepy and very engaging. And that's how I see that. Plus, I think the reason why I choose to, or like David Bowie, same story with it's kind of funny, to see some of the kids, they're being so enraged, no, Behemoth, no matter how hard you try, the Cure will never sound metal. By the way, what are you doing? You should cover Venom and Slayer and so on. And I'm like, man, we've been there, we've done that, okay? It's cool to, get out, leave your comfort zone and make band like The Cure or David Bowie, which we did, or Nine Inch Nails cover, which we did in the past, or Killing Joke cover, and just make it sound Behemoth and maybe something beyond that. So I just see it as a very challenging effort, and it feels right, and it feels artistically very stimulating. So I don't know, I think it's a great band, absolutely timeless discography, especially with albums like Pornography and Disintegrate, and lately I got the singles. I don't remember the name of the singles on vinyl, and that was the one that was on my turntable quite a few times lately. Amazing collection of singles. So yeah, that's it. I just love to challenge myself as an artist. I mean, I like to stay in my niche with my left leg and with my right leg, just to explore and try to do something less predictable, so to say.
Yeah, I can see why you would do that. One of the big questions that I had personally is, there are some bands that's back catalogue is so sacred. Was there ever any apprehension about tackling the Cure? Because there's no such thing as a half-hearted Cure fan.
No, I must say I'm not a diehard, but I'm an admirer. I'm a fan, but I'm not like a diehard fan. And I do not know all the discography, to be like completely frank with you. But that's fine. There's like beats and songs that like totally correspond with me. Not necessarily Friday I'm in Love is a song that is, I mean, I'm happy for them to make like a fucking timeless hit, but when it's on the radio, I usually mute it because it's like, not me.
Yeah.
But other stuff like less mainstream, less popular, is probably something that I dig the most from The Cure, and I'm totally fine with not being like an expert in the discography.
Yeah.
Because I'm only 43, so it gives me a chance to get even deeper and deeper and explore more and more. Pretty much same like with Depeche Mode. I got my favorite records, and lately I've started like rediscovering for myself like the very early catalog, which I kind of rejected, let's say 10, 15 years ago, to like disco, to new romantic, to electro, to whatever. It was just not for me. And then, that time is passing. I'm probably getting more mature. Surprise, surprise. And I'm getting into that stuff. So just give me some time, and maybe like 5 years down the road when we talk, I'll be a huge Robert Smith fan, and I'll have this big wig, of black hair, because I hardly have like my own left. So yeah, it's that's the story, I mean, well, basically what I mean is that there's bands that share like a mutual darkness, like a sonic, sinister darkness, and I just love it. I can't stop loving those bands, and I like to immerse in their music and just get something. I mean, it's so obvious to be a huge Slayer fan. You know what I mean? It's so obvious to be to be a Venom fan, and I'm a huge Venom fan. And lately, I actually did cover Venom with Mantas from Venom original lineup, and that was a great deal for me, But as a band, as Behemoth, is like, I mean, we've done that, man. It's I think it's cool to introduce kids to, because I obviously, I do know there's a lot of people that, I mean, like, there's 15 years old kids, that love extreme metal, but sometimes they don't know where it comes from, or they don't see the parallels that extreme metal makes with other genres of music. Same story with the Nephilim. We did the Nephilim back in the days, because I'm a huge Nephilim and Fields of the Nephilim fan, and it did work nice. It's not our best cover. I think it's solid. It's decent, but it's not great. But it made me build my relation with Carl McCoy. It made me go on stage and be so far the only guest on stage with Fields of the Nephilim ever. So you know what I mean? It's like I can also fulfill my my kids' dreams. My fanboy dreams. By building a certain network and just and at the same time opening up to like a broader spectrum of influences, because obviously if it wasn't for Venom and Bathory, I wouldn't be talking to you. But hey, it's not the world that does not end with fucking Venom and Bathory. There's other stuff that is like evil as fuck. It's just the guitars are low gain, and the guys are singing or semi-singing. If you take Joy Division, for instance, but it doesn't really take to be a great technical singer to express that certain vibes, that can be like totally addictive and engaging, and and very inspiring. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of those bands, like post-goth, post-punk bands, or Stranglers, and some other bands like that. That just there's a lot of good music out there, and I'm happy to rediscover some of that stuff. Or even discover. Sometimes I would reject it like 20 years ago, and now I'm like, I was so stupid. Because it's actually amazing. So yeah, and again. Uh, I remember, like reading some comments, underneath like the video and stuff. Like kids were like thinking, "Oh shit, Behemoth is getting soft," and some of them they're not even aware that this is the cover, and there's a band called The Cure, and I'm like, holy shit, I thought that everyone, even including my mother, knows The Cure, and of course, you always judge other people, by your own experience, but that's not necessarily the way it is. So I'm kind of happy to educate, others. Maybe the kids will go like, no, we need the screamo, we need a fucking aggressive music, but maybe today they reject it, and 10 years down the road they'll be like, oh, I think I'm growing into that now.
You know what, man? I'm not sure about that, Nergal, because one of the things that really stands out about your A Forest cover is while Behemoth's music has always been intrinsically evil, there was a certain kind of gothic noir that really came to the forefront on I Loved You at Your Darkest. And so it feels quite timely to be covering the Cure at this point in time, especially when you've made it so your own.
Yeah, that was the point, to make it our own, and then to be faithful to the original notes. So if you know the cover, you'd be like, yeah, I mean, I can hear it's a cover, but I'm happy that he didn't try to sing like Robert Smith, because no one can match that, and like you really need to know your place in line, and then that's what makes making covers exciting for me. Is like I don't want to do like copy paste thing, because yeah, just want to deliver something more. And you're right, I Love You at Your Darkest had some spots that kind of makes you aware that we are also influenced by that genre, and we just mix it up and and blend it with extreme metal, with black metal and death metal, and we try to make it our own, try to make it unique, and I hope we do. So yeah, probably 10 years ago I'd say no. I'm happy that we are mature enough to bite the bullet and challenge ourselves with such classics. I've seen some comments that are like, people are blown away. They're like, "Oh, my all-time favorite song, and you made it." But there's also comments like, "Holy shit, you ruined it. It's so bad." And I'm like, it makes me happy because I've never been into mild in-between comments. So whenever it's very polarized, that's a very Nergal vibe there. I mean, I don't want to be anything in between. Love me or hate me, So I really, judging by those comments, I know exactly that, again, I was 100% sincere.
Yeah, and I guess the other two tracks that are on the EP, am I right in saying that they were part of the I Loved You at Your Darkest sessions?
True.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we recorded like 17 pieces altogether, for that session, and even though the album is only like 47 minutes, which is like a semi-long, not very long, but not very short, it feels longer because it's all like, it's the way it's built up, the dynamics and everything. So it's not very much longer than the Satanist, but it feels like it's longer. I don't know how to explain it otherwise, but I hope it makes sense. And while some of the bands, I don't want to mention their names, because I'm a fan of those bands. I listen to their other records, and I'm like, why it's so long, man? And I mean it. Enough is enough. I mean, I don't want to say that. No, I mean, because they're one of my favorite bands, you know. But like some of the big bands, I don't know if it's an ego thing, you know, like, yo, we got this 13 songs, you know, they're all on the record. Sometimes, trust me, you know, from the outsider point of view and from the producer point of view, I feel like, guys, if you'd get rid of like 3 songs in between, like, you know, somewhere from the very center of the record, it would be way better balanced out. It'd be way more interesting as a whole. And then, of course, you know, you get into arguments and people tell you, yeah, but these days it's not about the albums anymore. Well, I understand that we don't have time anymore. Maybe during pandemic we do,
Yeah.
but pandemic will be over, and then again we'll just skip on Spotify. We still do, and that's the sign of times, signum temporis. That's how it works. Okay, but the fact that this is the global tendency that we think singles is not gonna change my way of viewing the record as a whole. And there's some of the bands that I don't want to mention names. They start with I, they start with M. They're amazing, and I love them, but they should do shorter records.
You're
And the
picking the small bands then, Nergal.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna pick small bands. You know, I'm gonna give you a perfect example. My friends from Swiss extreme metal band called Bolzer.
Yeah.
They have probably 4 EPs out and 1 full-length album. And I when I talked to them, even themselves agreed. I think that EP format just works better for us as a whole. And I do fucking agree with that, you know. That's why the next Behemoth album, for some reason, my mindset and the way I see that in my vision here, shouldn't be longer than 40 minutes. I just don't want it. And I feel it. It's hard for me to explain. We just got beats of music here and there. It's no finished songs yet. But I don't want to go that direction. I don't want to deliver like 50 or 60-minute long records. I don't want to do that. I don't want to overkill of music and people being like confused. And because it's even, I think that, you know, then, you know, imagine you got I Left You at Your Darkest, which I think is very much completed record, very coherent. Throwing these 2 songs there, it would make these 2 songs strongly compete with other strong songs.
Yeah, I agree.
So it doesn't mean that it was very difficult for me to make these choices. And I'm like, no, I mean, we can still release them at some point. They're gonna make it to Spotify. They're gonna make it singles. They're gonna be on YouTube. No problem. Evo, probably gonna, like the nearest occasion, we're gonna perform it live. Because,
oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's not like, you know, they're of a lesser importance. And I think the fact that there is this pandemic now, people are spread out, you know, we can't go and socialize. We're starting to, but you're calling from US?
Yes, well, I'm from London, but I'm here in LA now, yeah.
Okay, so you're fucked big time, you know, especially in New York.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, but hey, like in a month or 2, you know, things will go back to normal. London is no fun either, you know. You had like fucking almost 300 deaths like the day yesterday or the day before, while in Poland we had only 2. So I'm not saying, you know, it in a wrong way. Just watch yourself. But what I'm saying is like that a lot of people really appreciated the fact that we delivered that music. We dropped that little bomb, the grenade, let's call it.
Yeah.
You know, in between the cycles. And I remember I stopped being a fan of EPs a while ago, and like, I just want to deliver records. But then, you know, I had to like accommodate myself, just be more flexible here, because, hey, there's gonna be a really long period not very long, but you won't be touring, you won't be delivering anything in between. There's no festival season this year. And I'm gonna spoil an information now. Behemoth won't be doing any shows next summer either. So that's gonna be the longest um, no-show holidays for Behemoth in our career, in a touring career, because there's always been something, which I think is good. That's why we decided, no, we are releasing the songs. We are paying, we're gonna invest our own money to film a video for a movie, because it's almost like a movie for a forest. We're just gonna give something to people, and that's what we did. We did this EP. It's beautifully packaged. I know there's been people commenting, "Oh, why so expensive?" Because we run Rower House, we have to hire people because all the costs are so high, and that's what we had to do, and the strong limits. That's what we did. But then on the other hand, obviously, the same day that we dropped the EP, the EP is on Spotify, which is very much affordable for pretty much everyone. So if you can afford EP, you can always download the music. You can stream the music, no problem. It's all available there. Anyways, the content is there. Very happy with the content. Very happy with these 4 songs. And yeah.
Yeah, couple of more questions, and then I'll let you go. Firstly, it's really fascinating to hear you talk about where your mind is at creatively when it comes from writing. Because I'm fascinated by this stuff. Like when Metallica got as far as "And Justice for All," and so many ideas and so many riffs, they scaled it back for the Black Album. Mastodon, Crack the Sky, really big, in-depth, conceptual, like really a journey of a record, scaled it back for the Hunter. And with I Love You at Your Darkest being grand, orchestras, and I know what you mean, it's a 46-minute record, but it's really dense. There's a lot going on within that record. Is that why, as a songwriter, you're kind of going, no longer than 40 minutes and I'm going to rip?
I'm just thinking, that if we do a shorter record, because I truly believe in all the songs. It's not like Behemoth is not one of those bands that will release one single that's gonna carry the record and promote the record throughout the cycle. For the last record, I believe we did 6 singles. You know why?
Yeah.
Because I do believe that each one of them is stand out on its own. Each one is a valuable, strong single that can be performed live, that is gonna give a longevity to the songs, and so on and so on. So I don't want to drop like 6 minutes of music and people ignore most of the music on the record. I don't want that, because I live, breathe, eat, shit that music. You know what I mean? It's me.
Yeah.
And I don't want just cash on it. Okay, I did that right now. I live with that record. It's a testimony of who I am at this very period, and I always stand behind the records, behind what I sing about, behind what I say, and I don't want people to be indifferent to that. So now I think because our attention is so distracted by all the stimulants all over the place, we are overstimulated, and it's just too much. So I just think that doing maybe 8-song album, people will it's gonna be easier for people to process the record, to remember all the songs. You know what I mean? That is the problem that I have with most of the music these days, and especially a lot of extreme metal music. You get this fucking bomb of noise, and it's like, and I'm like, I need something like the hooks. I'm missing the hooks, and I'm like, where's the hooks? When you ask me about, I don't know, Venom black metal or Altars of Madness, or I'm wearing a Blasphemy shirt, I can probably name all the songs. I know with Blasphemy it's gonna be difficult to hum the songs with the band. You know what I mean? I remember the songs. It's very important for me to that the record will be perceived as holistically, and yet you will remember, oh, I remember that Behemoth album. It had an acoustic on that song, and it had piano on this one. And then they did a song that is just weird, and they might not remember the titles because there's too many titles. You know, there's too much of everything. But they will remember each particular song, you know. I don't want to deliver like a blurry picture. I want to deliver a very focused, sharp painting that people can focus, can analyze, can process in a long time, and they will digest it, and it's gonna make them make an effort. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're not just gonna boom, boom, out like most of the music these days. I know we are a product, sadly, but that's how we make our living. I wish we could, you know, feed ourselves with art and pay with art.
Yeah.
But we can't.
Yeah.
We must release products. But still, apart from the fact that this is a piece of plastic, I really hope that it's gonna be a piece of heart of each fan out there that's gonna confront with Behemoth's music. Same goes with the live show. That's why we are investing so much money. Pretty much earning the same money like every season because, oh, we have more money. How can we spend it? What do you mean? Yeah, we want to go bigger. We want people to fucking remember the shows. You know, I don't want them to be indifferent. I don't want them to eat wurst and fucking drink beer and fart, you know, while Behemoth is on. I want them to get excited, to get thrills, to scream, to go nuts. I want to move people with music, album music, the live music, with what I say. I don't want them to be indifferent, you know. So that's what art, in this very case, extreme radical music, should do to people. It should make you feel alive, not spoiled and just bored.
Yeah.
It should fucking shake the fuck out of you.
Well, we look forward to more shaking the fuck out of us in the future. Like, I got to ask, how's lockdown been for you? You don't, as someone that's kind of creative, you don't strike me as the kind of sit in your pants and watch Tiger King kind of guy.
I did.
You did.
Of course. I was very immune to that for a long time, and I'm like, do I really want to spend hours and hours watching some redneck idiot doing some stupid shit? But then, like, more and more people would like advise me, like, no, please go watch it. You know, the world is nuts. And well, I did, and yes, the world is nuts, people.
Only in America, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it is this, you know. I mean, I've seen stuff like that. You know, I don't know if you're familiar with this movie called Gamo.
Yeah, I know Gamo. Yeah.
It's amazing movie, but this is like this redneck America that can be very disturbing. So it's very disturbing. It's like, are these people serious there, or is it serious? Do people seriously look like that? And it's like, it makes you question, it makes you think. It's like, holy shit, you know, the world is a fucked up place, and it's definitely a good documentary. But yeah, I mean, I'm very ADHD person, and I'm using my isolation as creatively. I'm using the time as creatively as I can, and I'm just coming back from the studio literally, where we nailed pretty much most of the songs, you know, for Volume 2, for Me and That Man. So probably expect the next record, you know, coming out next year, and probably next Behemoth coming out next year, because we start rehearsing in a couple of weeks. Very intense rehearsal sessions for next couple of months. And I've been watching a lot. I've been reading a lot of books, and just you know, staying like really occupied and just making sure that if this is, look, imagine I got a lemon in my hand now, and the lemon is called Pandemic and Isolation. I'm doing this. And I'm squeezing like all the juices out of that, very unprecedented period of time. And I wish you people out there, if you're watching, you're also, you're not getting lazy, you're not getting fat, you're not getting just bored, just use that time, because maybe you'll never ever gonna get that time in your lifetime. It's really worth, you can just slow down and use it in a different way. Just because you don't have a lot of things to do, so just use your time, you know, with awareness.
New guests on the Me and That Man record. New guests for Volume 2.
Man, I wish I could tell you.
Yeah.
Fucking exciting guests. I mean, like, I've been talking to a friend of mine prior to that talk, and he's like, man, you must be, because of course, I would tell him, about new guests.
Yeah, of course.
It must feel very special to have all these people on the record. Man, I'm 43. I'm making my living out of making music, but like what is probably like the cherry on the top of the cake is that I'm inviting all these amazing dudes to this project. Some of like them being like a supreme legends, still living fucking brilliant legends. Some low profile legends too. And like mixing it up, and just making something that is quite unique. I think. I hope it just makes my fanboy hunger very much fulfilled. So yeah, I'm living my dream, big time, doing that, and I think I'm hungrier than ever for this thrill, for passion, and for excitement that music that I make can deliver to people and deliver to me in the first place. I must say that it is very egocentric, because I'm the first critic, and I'm the first person who listens to that, and I must be the one, doing this. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I think I can put it on the record, So I'm the first one to like it, and it really gives me a lot of joy.
Nergal, congrats on everything that's going on at the moment. I really can't wait to hear what you've got cooking up for 2021. And more than anything, thank you so much for driving safely. I couldn't have that on my conscience, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good at double duty or triple duty. Maybe it's not very smart, but I really think I'm a good driver. Fast, but good. And thanks for, killing my boring time on the road. Because honestly, being on the road, driving and making interviews, this is very much my thing. Because when I drive, I can finally focus. Because I get open highway here. I just put pedal to the metal and just drive, and this is the best time for me to do interviews, because I can really go long and deep into the content, and not like when I'm on tour or when I'm somewhere, I'm like, okay, fuck off. You know what I mean? How long we've been talking now? I don't know how long, but long.
Half an hour, yeah.
35 minutes. It's a decent time. You know what I mean? So I really hope you get like a really in-depth interview about what is happening in my artistic life now. So yeah, thanks for your time. Appreciate it so much. And yeah, stay safe there in LA, all right? And send my love to LA, because I fucking love that spot. I miss my friends there, and I'll be there as soon as there's flights. I'm so flying to LA.
Well, we'll see you soon then, Nergal. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon, mate.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
You owe it to yourself to check out the new EP from Behemoth. It is called A Forest. Their cover of The Cure's A Forest is really, really great, as are the two new songs. The first of which has got a bit of Iron Maiden in there, a bit of Motorhead in there as well, alongside Behemoth's traditional black metal fury. It's well good. Should put that as a sticker on the front of it. It's well good. Mosh Talks. Anyway, coming up next, moving swiftly on. Ben Bruce from Asking Alexandria. So it's not a stretch when it comes to the world of hard rock and metal to say that over the course of the last 10, 15 years, Asking Alexandria are one of the most successful British bands out there. Their new album has been out a couple of weeks. It's called Like a House on Fire. It has had something of a mixed reception, and I asked Ben all about it because he's an honest guy and he doesn't pull his punches, and here's that chat. Yeah, Ben Bruce from Asking Alexandria here on Mosh Talks with me, Beez. All right, so he was supposed to be here last week, but his wife had the audacity to have a baby. Ben, how's the last week of your life been, mate?
It's been chaotic. It's been strange. Our new album came out. My new baby came out. And apparently the world has come out to the streets, and there's riots and protests and all sorts going on. So it's a strange time.
It's weird, isn't it? Like I wasn't sure if I was going to address it at all, but it feels kind of weird. Like even talking to you coming up about some of the shitstorms to do with your new record feel relatively small shitstorms. Right,
exactly. So now I'm like, oh man, my problems seem irrelevant at this point. But you know, I think it's high time that this happened. Really, you know, I think the world was headed for change. 2020 from the get-go, everyone was looking forward to it. I had a feeling. Have you been creative during lockdown then? Because I do wonder how the times affect people that are songwriters like yourself. I have. In fact, right before we started our conversation, I was writing a new song. So I've been trying to keep myself busy. Obviously, with 3 kids and a wife, I'm busy anyway. But I come up to this room up here, which is like our guest room. This is where I sort of, it's like my own little world. It's where I get to write and record and just sort of do music, because music's always been my escape. And I've been doing a lot of auditions for like movies and television shows and stuff like that up here too. So this is the magic room. Actually, this is the room I come to when the kids are going bonkers and I pretend like I need to work. Like, don't disturb me, babe. Really important things happening. Sorry, love, riffs wait for no one. Exactly. If I don't go now, it'll disappear. I wanted to ask a little bit about having a family and stuff now, because I've not hung around with you as a group of people since you were Maniacs. And the last time that I saw you was we were on a plane going to Rock on the Range, and you still give off the vibe of naughty school kids on the bus, even on an aeroplane. I just wondered, what is the vibe like in Asking Alexandria these days? It's really boring. Like, it's so funny. Like we spent all of 2018 and 19 pretty much in arenas in the States, and it was like, cool. We're doing it. We're in arenas now. We've taken the next step up, and we would play, and instead of celebrating like Asking Alexandria always used to do, it would be bedtime. Like, oh, that was a good show. Night, lads. I'll see you in the morning, bright and early. And I'd be up at 6 o'clock in the morning the next morning, having coffee or tea, and we'd all discuss the show the day prior. And yeah, man, you know what? I say it's boring, but just being drunk and hungover all the time gets really boring, you know. And I think we're older now, and it hurts a lot more to drink. that post 32-day hangover that they tell you about is not a lie. It's not a lie. And imagine just trying to play a show feeling like I've played shows recently on the last headliner, but because obviously we're all clean and free from drugs. None of us do any drugs anymore, which is a huge step. And when it comes to drinking, we still drink a bit because, you know, we enjoy a drink. But for me, it's like I stick with wine. I don't drink any spirits. I'll maybe have some beer, but really for me, it's like a few glasses of red wine, and that's it. You know, you don't really party on red wine.
Yeah.
You listen to music and talk on red wine, you know. So, but there have been, obviously, if you drink too much red wine, you can still get that horrible hangover. And there's been a few times on the last few tours where, like, maybe once a week we'll have a drink. It's like, okay, well, we've got, you know, 6 shows under our belt. We can have a drink tonight, and we'll have a drink. And because it's been 6 days and we're not drinking, it's like, okay, well, I'll have maybe a few too many, and you end up going to bed. And because it's red wine, you sleep really well, and you wake up, and it's like you wish yesterday had never happened. That carries through onto stage, and it's just not fun. When we were young, it's like, oh, whatever, we'll drink through it. Hair of the dog, we'll be drunk on stage. It doesn't matter. And you never gave yourself that time to feel that shit. But now, I can't just keep on drinking, and we don't just keep on drinking. So now the hangovers are so bad, that's almost the deterrent. Like, there's nights it's like, should we have a drink tonight? It's like, yeah, but nah, let's just go to bed instead.
One of the fascinating things that I didn't get to talk to you on the last cycle, and knowing you all individually the way that I do, one of the things that really stood out was I wanted to ask about the creative decision of coming back together again, because I saw you play a show at the Camden Roundhouse before Danny left, and you looked like 2 different groups of people. Like, Danny looked one way and you guys looked another. And so when that split came, it made a lot of sense. And then Danny's creative output is what it is outside of Asking Alexandria. Now, when he came back, personal stuff is by the by. You've done that a million times in the press. What I'm interested in is creatively, how the 2 forces that from the outside seem so polar opposite come together. What were the agreements when you were coming together at that time?
We didn't really have any agreements as such. It's just, I think we learned a lot from our time apart, and we figured out sort of what went wrong. And back then, as you know, we were just so fucked up on drugs and alcohol all the time. There was no sort of clarity. You know, we were just kind of balls to the wall, go, go, go. We were a freight train just speeding towards a wall. And I think the big thing that happened was, and that big divide that you see between Asking, the 4, you know, musicians, and then Danny, is when he had other creative things that he wanted to express and get out, we then didn't understand why. We were like, well, what are you talking about? We've got everything we need here with Asking. We've worked so hard to get here. Why do you want more? And so we kind of stifled that creativity, and we're like, no, man, you have to concentrate on this solely. And so he was like, okay, I get it. Which led it to bleed into Asking. And that's where you see that divide. It's like, well, Danny looks this way and we look this way. That's because we didn't allow him to have another outlet for that stuff that he wanted to explore. And so it came in and just smudged Asking Alexandria. And it was kind of just a traveling shit show at that point. So when he left, you know, which was inevitable the way we were all going, when he did come back, we'd all grown up a lot. We'd all learned a lot. And we went, okay, it's important to have other outlets. Otherwise, it does bleed into Asking Alexandria. And whilst Asking Alexandria is we're all very open-minded about music. We love all kinds of music. You know, some things just don't work and some things do when you're in a group of musicians and creators together. And it wasn't working that way. But because we didn't allow him to explore other avenues, that's why it kind of all seeped in. And so now it's just like, okay, well, he wants to do a singer-songwriter thing. He can do that as Danny Warsnop. He wants to do this. He can do that as Danny Warsnop. And for me, a real big thing that made me realize that is when I started acting. And I was like, oh, shoot, this is a really different outlet for me. And I thoroughly enjoyed getting that creativity out of me in a completely different way that wasn't Asking. And I was like, I get it. Like, I understand now. And so now that he's back, we don't stifle him. You know, he's a songwriter just like we all are. And he wants to write some country music or some blues music or some fucking jazz, hip hop, fusion music. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to us anymore. We let him go and do his thing. And then we all reconvene when it's time to do Asking, and we do Asking.
And so the self-titled was really successful. Like so Alone in a Room was happening on radio as I moved here. And I think I would describe the self-titled as having quite an octane-friendly sound. Which begs the question, when we move to a new record, Like a House on Fire is quite different to the self-titled. Not as big as some people are suggesting, but it's quite different. What makes you go in a different direction when you've had a successful record before it?
We've already done that record. You know, we've never been a band that sort of found success in one avenue and stuck with it. And I think anyone that knows Ask Alexandria, or even anyone that doesn't, and anyone that listens to Ask Alexandria and listens to our discography can see that we had monumental success with Stand Up and Scream. But Reckless and Relentless sounded nothing like Stand Up and Scream. We're like, okay, well, we've done that now. And to us as artists and songwriters, it's a cop-out to find something that really, really works and to just do it because you know it works, even if it doesn't feel right, even if you're having to force yourself to write it. To me, that's what a sellout is. And so, you know, Reckless and Relentless compared to Stand Up and Scream are very, very different records, very different. And people maybe say, well, no, they're not, but they are. If you listen to them musically, they're nothing at all alike. Sure, I think people just hear screaming and breakdowns and go, okay, well, it's all the same. But it's not. And if you compare From Death to Destiny to Reckless and Relentless or Stand Up and Scream, again, it's a huge jump. And so we've always just progressed and done what we feel is right for us at the time. And I think we've held on to that because that's what we did with Stand Up and Scream. When we did Stand Up and Scream, there were no expectations, there were no rules, no one knew who the fuck we were. So we were like, well, there was no one telling us to sound a certain way. So we did what we wanted to do at that moment in time and hoped that people would listen to it and be able to relate to it and enjoy it. And that's kind of what we've just always done. We've not written a record because people have been like, it should sound like this because you know it's going to be successful. It's always just been how we have felt as songwriters and what's influenced us at the time and what we've been through. And so, for instance, for Like a House on Fire, we've been, like I said earlier on, we've been in arenas and 15, 20,000 cap sheds for 2 years, and we've been playing all the biggest festivals in the world. And you look out into those crowds every night and you see and feel people's reactions, and that's what fed Like a House on Fire. It's like, okay, the best parts of our show always are like the bridge at the end of Alone in a Room, and there's 10, 15,000 people with their hands in the air just jumping up and down, having the time of their life. Or we go and play Moving On, which is an epic like rock ballad, and there's people in the crowd crying and singing whilst they're crying. And then we play Someone Somewhere acoustic, and there's lighters in the air, and again people are just crying and thanking us for writing the song. It's like, okay, this is what rock and roll is all about. Rock and roll is an outlet for people to express what they're going through, and a lot of the time what people are going through is a really shit situation because life's fucking hard. And so instead of dwelling on the shit situations, Like a House on Fire, we discussed going through the shit situations and how we have managed to get from there to here. That all wanting light at the end of the tunnel, that thing that everyone is searching for. It's like, okay, well, we did it. We went through the fucking shit show and we made it here. And that's what Like a House on Fire was for us. And that's why it might sound slightly different, but we were in a much different headspace. We were in a much more positive headspace than we ever have been before.
Like, I'm quite intrigued because, like, I think it's a situation of kind of 2 threes. I can see it from 2 different sides. Bear with me on this one. So I understand, like, it would be ridiculous of me to ignore certain reaction to this record. And I understand if you're a kid and you're like, that's my Asking Alexandria, the Asking Alexandria of the past, that's who they are. I understand it from that point of view. If you look at the band today, I had it when I was a kid and I first got into metal. My band were Metallica during Load, right? So I know what it's like to have. I was on the side of this thing, but all these people that didn't get it. The flip side to that is, I think there's a lot of bands that came from that time period that are either not here anymore or are about a 20th as successful as Asking Alexandria because they're still doing that.
100%.
How do you feel about your relationship with what I'm going to call, respectfully, the scene?
Isn't it scary calling it the scene, because people get offended, but it shouldn't be offensive.
Look, if you're offended, I was just using it as a term. Come on, I'm just asking.
Yeah, exactly. No, and you know the funny thing is, I can understand too, and like you, for me, when I was growing up, for instance, Avenged Sevenfold, one of my favorite bands ever, and when their White album came out, their self-titled, I put it on and I went, oh, what the fuck is this shit? And I turned it off. I was like, this is fucking crap. Fast forward to now, and that album is probably my favorite album they've ever produced. And it just goes to show that, yes, people don't like initial change, but I think just because it's a shock to the system. It's like when you jump in an ice cold bathtub, you're like, oh God, this is fucking awful. And your instant reaction is to get out. But if you stay in the bathtub for long enough, your body adjusts and you're not in pain anymore. And you realize this is actually good for me. This is good. I'm glad I did this. And you get out and you're healthier. And it's the same thing. The initial shock is there. And I get that. I had it with Avenged. I had it with Slipknot. People have it with Asking. But I just ask them to give it time, because it will become your favorite album, just like the White album did for me, just like I'm sure you fell in love with Load afterwards, after listening to it and taking it for what it actually is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Do you relate to that pocket of of music anymore? Like, let me put it this way, right? Let's say Warped hadn't folded, right, or become a limited thing, stopped becoming a touring festival. If Warped Tour was happening this summer, do Asking Alexandria fit in your eyes?
I mean, it's such a hard one, because no, I don't think we do. And it's not because I don't appreciate where we came from, because I fucking do. I've been doing this for a long time. And when I was a child, Warped Tour was the epitome of touring. It was everything I wanted to do, and we accomplished that goal. But the simple fact of the matter is, people do grow and they do change. And Warped Tour was there for me, just like Stand Up and Scream and Reckless and Relentless were there for me as a very specific outlet for that very specific time in my life. And I needed it then. And it was something that helped me progress to the next level and the next chapter of my life. It helped me grow. It helped me learn from mistakes. It helped me go through and make mistakes and be able to grow and learn from that time in my life. But I'm not in that time in my life anymore. And that's not discrediting what it is now, because there are so many people that are in that time in their life now. And music, that's the thing about music, you know, it's forever evolving and forever growing. And it's not because music magically does that on its own. It's because the musicians and the artists do it. And so I get a little bit annoyed when people go, oh, bands just say they're getting mature and that's why they don't scream anymore. But maturity doesn't necessarily mean you can't scream anymore. And I agree. No, it doesn't. There are lots of bands that mature and continue to scream and make very, very heavy music. But that's because that's where those musicians, that's where their journey has taken them. That is their outlet. That's how they create, and that's what they get out. And maturing doesn't mean not screaming anymore. Maturing means growing. It means changing into someone else and learning and taking you from here to here, and wherever that is where you end up. And it doesn't necessarily mean I'm saying if you scream you're immature. It's just saying for me, my journey of maturity has taken me here, and that's fine, and that should be fine with everyone. And our old albums are still there for people to listen to and enjoy. I still listen to our old albums from time to time and put them on and go, man, this is cool. Like, I listened to A Prophecy not long ago. I was like, man, this song is great. This song is so good. But I would never write it again, because it wouldn't be genuine. It would just be writing it for the sake of writing it.
Yeah. And what do you think your music says about you in 2020? Because I've had moments, Ben. Like, the thing is, we're mates. Like, total transparency. Like, if you're out and about and I see you, I'll come over and hang out and just talk bollocks with you.
Yeah.
And I know how seriously you take your music. Like, you know what I mean? I'm sat here in a fucking Full of Hell t-shirt, but we're friends, and I know how seriously you take your music. And there's been moments like the solo in Moving On, where I'm like, fucking go on, geezer. And what does your music in 2020 say about where you are? When you say you can't relate to that music that you made in the past, what does your music say about you in 2020?
It says that we're in a much better place than we were, and that is simply a fact. You know, when we were writing Reckless Relentless, and he's talking about the white hills and the oceans, he's talking about cocaine and alcohol addiction and everything that comes along with it. This now says, it should say to people, if they're actually listening to it, we've been there, we've been through the shit. And either, as a listener, you've been through it too, and now you're here with us, in which case, fuck yeah, you know how much better it is on this side. Or you're going through that shit, and we're here to tell you it will be okay. We're here to tell you that you can make it through, that it's not hopeless, it's not the end of the world, and that there is light at the end of that tunnel. And that's what our music says now. Just like back then, our music said, we're a fucking traveling shit show. We're lost. We've been sucked into this black abyss and lost who we are as humans. And so we put that out to the world. And it was like, back then it was we're there with you. We're going through this shit show too. And now we've made it through the other side. And there's so many people, I know there are, that have made it to the other side with us, that are still on this journey with us. And it seems to be growing every day. And it's sad when people can't understand that. And they get upset. They get very caught up on very trivial things that music shouldn't be about. Like, oh, where are the screams? Well, what does that matter? Because no song that we've ever released has ever been about screaming. We're not screaming to scream. We're screaming a message, and that message was anger and hurt and pain and anguish, and we're not there anymore. So now we're delivering a very different message, and so it's very strange when people want us to scream for the sake of screaming, to me. But maybe that's just because I don't relate to it anymore.
Well, last question from me. When was the last time you did write something like that? Like, just for people out there, like if they are like in any way disillusioned with where you're at, like when was the last time you even wrote something like that?
Out of the joy of writing it, for that, probably like Run Free. You know, back in from Death to Death.
Fucking hell! Wow,
a long time ago. We have recently written something very, very heavy with lots and lots of screaming, and we were like, you know, we've got lots of fans that want to hear that, so let's do something. And so we went into the studio probably about 3 weeks ago, and we recorded something really heavy with lots and lots of screaming in it. And we decided not to release it because it just felt so wrong. It was like, this isn't. We're not connecting with this, and so if we release this, there's going to be a lot of probably younger kids or fans of our older sound that are going to be like, this is awesome, this is what we've been waiting for. But then what does that say about us? Okay, well, we've given it to you now, we're not doing it again. This was just a one-off for you, but this band isn't about that, you know.
You'd kind of look a bit like Ronald McDonald serving burgers rather than an artist creating.
Yeah, and it would just be silly. And to me, that is selling out. And I'll tell you what, if we're ever in a situation where we find ourselves in the studio screaming down the microphone again, it's for a reason, and because we feel that is the correct way to present what we're feeling at that time. And, you know, if you do listen to Like House on Fire and you listen to, like, I don't know, the bridge in Down to Hell where Danny's screaming, I want to find somewhere to lose my mind, dig around inside and go a little crazy. He is yelling that. He's not doing the classic, like, growly scream, but he's fucking screaming, but he's really screaming to the point where if you did that all the time, you damage your voice. But that's because that was the emotion that section of that song needed, and that he wanted to portray to the world. And so if you ever do hear us screaming, it's not because we've been told we have to, it's because that's where we are at that point in time. And that doesn't necessarily mean it'll be angry screams. You know, I don't think, like I said, in the Down to Hell bridge, those aren't angry screams. Those are manic screams, because at the time he was in the booth and just feeling insane. And that's how you portray that. And so for us, screaming has kind of become something that we want to use really well. Like, we want that scream to mean something. If it's there for a reason. It is there because we're angry or we're pissed off or we're feeling manic or scared by something. It's not just there because people are like, well, you should scream in the verses and sing in the chorus.
Yeah. I guess the best thing we can do, Ben, I reckon, is let's give this, when the world opens up again and you've been able to take this record on the road for a little while, come back and we'll have a chat and we'll see if reaction has changed.
Yeah.
But go on, mate.
I know it's going to, because I remember it's like when we released The Violence, people were like, it sounds like Maroon 5. I'm like, what fucking Maroon 5 album? Because I want it. Like, what
I was surprised when I heard The Violence, I'll be honest.
But then we went out and played it live, and I was like, oh, check it out, man. As soon as we play this live, and then okay, so you've been to a million festivals and shows. When a band plays a new song live, the crowd, more often than not, sat there like,
piss break.
They don't know the song, they can't sing it, they don't know when to do anything. They're taking it in. Whether they like it or not, it's a different thing. But that initial reaction you get, they're taking it in. The very first time we ever played The Violence, we walked out on stage and we opened our set with it. And everyone was like, that's a fucking ballsy move. Immediately, as soon as we kick on the ban and we played it at a festival. There was fucking 15, 20,000 people up off their feet, all jumping. And I was like, this is why we wrote this fucking song. This is fucking sick. And I know that's what's going to happen when we play They Don't Want What We Want. And I know people are going to cry when we play I Don't Need You. And that's why we wrote these songs. We wrote these songs with, like I said, with that in mind, the rock and roll show in mind.
Ben, love you, mate. Congrats to you and the missus, and we'll see you out and about soon.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.
See, I told you he was straight up. Ben Bruce from Asking Alexandria, whose new album, Like a House on Fire, is out now on Sumerian. So, next up is someone, getting nervous even doing this, is someone that is actually a real-life genuine hero of mine. I think Jacob Bannon stands for artistic excellence across most of the things that he does in life, be that his artwork, his various side projects, and of course the jewel in the crown is Converge. So I took this opportunity to talk to him about all of that, and it turns out he's doing even more than that, because he's about to tell you about a brand new band that he hasn't told anyone about that he's part of. It also includes some massive names from the world of traditional heavy metal and, extreme underground as well. I'm getting excited even thinking about it. Look, what am I wasting time for? Jacob Bannon from Converge, from Wear Your Wounds, and from Umbra Vitae, whose album Shadow of Life is out now. Jacob Bannon, take it away. I am so happy to be joined by Jake Bannon from Converge, Wear Your Wounds, and I guess what we're going to talk about a lot today is your new project, Umbra Vitae. When did your love for death metal develop? Like, was it the Floridian stuff that got your fires going in the first place? When did you first develop a love for death metal?
I guess it was in the golden era of the genre. I was fortunate to be a teenager as it all was happening in front of me. There was a lot of interesting things happening within hardcore, within metal. The sort of birth of death metal to me is like a band like Death, although some people would probably say Possessed. And a couple others, here or there, Repulsion as well. But for me, it was always Death. The Spiritual Healing record was actually the first record that really connected with me. And that's kind of where I got in on it. And then I followed all the early, Road Racer stuff, all the stuff that was happening on labels like New Red Archives. There was a label called Wild Rags when I was a kid that put out a lot of underground death metal related stuff and grind stuff and thrash. And I was just in it deep.
So is there a particular type of death metal that really stands out to you? Because death metal's got like all of these kind of weird offshoot things. Like, I'm never one to want to genre label too much, but I know death metal gets really particular with its like caveman death metal, technical death metal, and when you throw death in straight away, the technical side of things comes to mind.
It does, but the band also, they started off as a kind of meat and potatoes, thrash death metal band, really. And, they grew and experimented from that point and started, really pulling in the technical end of things into their sound and doing some really interesting things. And those are the records that I actually listen to the most, are like, Human and Symbolic and, Son of Perseverance and stuff like that. Like those are the records for me. Those are the ones that just, stick with me, that are memorable.
Yeah, sorry, mate, carry on.
But to me, I don't really subscribe to listening to one specific kind of death metal or heavy music. If something is powerful to me and something just engages with me, I go with it. On the technical end of things, bands like Atheist and Gore Guts and stuff have always done something for me. They've always been exciting to me. But I also really like just like simple primal music like Obituary and Bolt Thrower as well. Always have.
And so the reason that we're talking about death metal is because I was kind of surprised I was taken off guard by this project being announced anyway. It was awesome to kind of get this out of nowhere. But having read some of the interviews that you've been doing for this so far, I read that you and Sean had been kicking this idea around for about 15 years.
Yeah.
Where does the appeal and the allure of a project like this come from? And for it to kick around for so long, it must have been something that's a long-standing ambition.
Well, we're still angry people. We're not well-adjusted human beings, and we work through a lot of that within song. I do that. Mike McKenzie, who people know as Gunface, does that, and with his writing. Sean does it. Greg does it. John does it with his drumming. So like, it's just part of who we are is playing aggressive music and trying to fulfill something within ourselves through that process. Sean and I started talking about making a heavy band happen right after he left Hatebreed, and he's done a multitude of musical projects since then, and collaborated with everybody from Wes to do Cold Cave and whatnot, to writing a Cage record. He's done so much incredible stuff. So just playing with him in heavy music is really fun for me. And I absolutely love playing with Gunface, with Mike McKenzie. To me, he's one of the best guitarists and songwriters out there today. So it's always an honor to collaborate with him in anything that we do, whether it be this band or Wear Your Wounds or anything.
And like, I guess it kind of follows on from that to say, I was really impressed by the level of groove on this, because that, like, when people think about death metal, it's easy to just go straight to the savagery, but there's a lot more than just straight up ripping brutality going on within this record, isn't there? There
is. There's a lot of, it's actually quite a melodic record. I know like it gets pigeonholed a bit as being more of a throwback to like the early days of hardcore and death metal kind of meeting in the middle and making something that like the early primordial deathcore thing. That's because Greg and Mike are two of the songwriters that helped shape that genre. So it's impossible to get away from that comparison or anything like that. But our musical libraries as writers and creators have just progressed over the last 15, 20 years. There's a whole lot of stuff in that. We wanted to strip a lot of the decoration out of there and just make things as authentic to our vision as possible. So I would say like, if it's meant to be, groove oriented and heavy, that's what it is. If it's meant to be, just like intense blast, intense speed, that's what it is. We just trimmed the fat and tried to make the most potent album as we possibly could. That's why it's actually quite short. There isn't that much decoration.
Did it come together quite quickly then, with that being the goal and the aim to just totally trim the fat? Did it make it come together a bit quicker?
I think we went in some spurts of of just having the time and the excitement, built around the idea of this band. So we started talking about this band when we were doing the last Wear Your Wounds record, and once we were already kind of getting excited about the prospect of doing this new heavy thing while we were making something that was like actually quite the opposite and quite emotional and a little more fragile than Umbra. So yeah, I mean, we got excited, and then it took a few months for us to get the time to start shaping some songs. Mike had a bunch of demos, I had a couple demos, Sean had a couple ideas, and we just started working on them as fast as we could after that. I think the whole album itself, in terms of like the refinement and recording process, probably came together in just a couple months, but the whole thing just in about a year's time.
I'd read that you were putting this together, like it's because you were mentioning Wear Your Wounds, that the initial ideas musically started coming together when you were warming up before recording Wear Your Wounds.
Yeah,
is that accurate?
That's accurate. Those guys would rip on stuff, and I would sit there because I'm a rudimentary player. You know what I mean? I can write riffs, and I know I can write good songs, and I can write good riffs, but I am not the there's a reason why I'm a bass player, so I just kind of whip through some ideas and say, this is what I want, let's make it happen. And then usually, if I'm in that headspace writing with anybody, they add the flair and the decoration to something and bring it to life. But those guys, they just have this natural ability to rip and play heavy, like, just off the cuff. And they'd start doing that when we were to just, be setting up, working on the Wear Your Wounds stuff. And we're just sitting there going like, man, this is just so good. We can't just throw these ideas, in the trash or the drawer. Let's do something with this. Let's make something with this. And, we all got pretty fired up.
It's interesting because Wear Your Wounds, while being really intricate, has this unescapable intensity to it. And now that I've heard that was how you were warming up, I guess I might even get something a little bit more out of that Wear Your Wounds record in the knowledge of that.
Sure, it gives you a little more depth, to understanding that. I think that with Wear Your Wounds too, when you start peeling back the layers, if somebody just hears that band and they don't know our musical histories independently from that, they just kind of will say, oh, it's a post-rock band that happens to have these heavy elements and whatnot and works in crescendos, but then you start piecing it together with some of the other stuff that we have done, and it takes on a little bit different of a narrative, and I think it takes on a little bit different of a just a different sound. You hear it with different ears when you have that knowledge, for sure. When you know that we can play these super hyper, fast, aggressive things, and then we've made a whole lot of noise before we started that band.
I guess another reason that I was taken aback by Umbra coming out of nowhere was there'd just been a quote doing the rounds for an interview that you and the Converge guys had been working on Blood Moon orientated things. Just in case any of the viewers don't know what Blood Moon is, you guys collaborated with some other brilliant musicians and put together reworkings of your songs that were in a more stifling, claustrophobic but slower capacity. So this death metal project out of nowhere, it came really as a surprise. How far into the Blood Moon stuff were you?
We were into it then. We've been into it for that project has been something that we've all been slowly whittling at for I guess 3 years now, 3.5 years. And it was an idea for years in Kurt's head and my head before that, to add that sort of new branch to the Converge universe. And, we're still whittling away at that. We're very much in that headspace right now. So with that said, it was nice to have a bit of a yin to the yang, right? So we're making these. I'm making personally the Aware Your Wounds record that is really I won't call it claustrophobic, but it's emotionally very bare and it's very heavy in a different kind of way. And so Umbra was refreshing to do, like right off of that. And in many ways, having that band exist now also gives me another cool voice to have when I'm working on stuff like the Converge Blood Moon material with that group of people.
Yeah, see, I was lucky enough I caught the Brixton show when you were doing Blood Moon before I moved out here to the States. And it was kind of bittersweet to leave because the show I can remember like it happened yesterday. And it was quite bittersweet to be leaving with that. Like, I was like, oh, I'm sure they'll record the Roadburn set because you had like so many, like all of the guests,
right,
and you were curating it that year as well. And when nothing materialized, there was always something quite bittersweet to look back at on that. How closely is what you're doing now? How close is that to what we saw in the live shows back a couple of years back?
There's a lot of stuff going on. All I can really say is that we're making some really powerful sounds together, and we're doing stuff that I don't think that any of us independently have ever really done before. So what Blood Moon is evolving into with the seven of us is I don't know, it's something very powerful. It's something really special. We're all right now, all of us are working on it. We were supposed to be working on it a little bit more and all be in the same place around this time, but obviously the pandemic situation derailed those plans. So we're all working on it to the best of our abilities now, but it's very powerful music.
I was going to ask about that because the music is so intricate. Like when you were at that show, you could feel the tension between the players on stage. It doesn't feel like the kind of project that can be done remotely, but that's just my interpretation as just a writer.
These days, everything can, to a degree, be done remotely in terms of the technical ability existing, but it is a challenge for sure, and it's a new set of challenges, and I think that if there's ever been something that Converge as a unit has flourished in, it's in times in which we're challenged to make something, and I think we're make something great with limited resources. And having hurdles, and we're doing that.
I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I've got to ask, because we're in this pandemic, and you're someone that I consider to be relentlessly creative. How has creating in this environment been, Jake?
Well, I haven't created that much since it all kind of kicked off. For a good amount of time, we had to slim down the Death Wish staff. So there's just been like a skeleton crew, here working, every day on, getting orders out the door and, ensuring that, we're there for the artists and bands that, we do fulfillment for, and we, make their records. So we've been doing that. And I put a lot of creative stuff on hold, in the back of my mind is not even the back, in the variety of places. I'm working on the Blood Moon, my aspect of the Blood Moon stuff with that crew. But, in terms of doing visuals, I haven't had really any time. Aside from the Umbra record, I actually finished another album before the pandemic situation hit here in the States, and that we didn't put that totally on ice, but I definitely delayed getting that out to the world because of this, you know. So we would probably be talking about 2 records right now if that didn't happen. But I'll come. You know, I just need time to make the art that coincides with that record. It's, you know, I would say it's 20%, 25% done, and then I need to, you know, push it a little further. But I'm really excited about that band as well.
Yeah, I won't push too much, but is that something new?
That's something totally new for me. Where Umbra is a band, is a proper band, and, you know, Converge and Where Your Wounds are proper bands. This is more of a project that might have some live elements at some point. But I wrote a album with Shane Embry from Napalm Death, Dirk from Megadeth, who's also used to play drums and Soilwork, and Jesper from Nasum. And we recorded a 12-song album, and we're really excited about it. And you know, we're going to get that out to the world. I don't know. Hopefully, in the next few months. That's, you know, we'll see what happens. But you know, I'm kind of just letting things roll as they are at the moment, and not really putting on any expectations as to, you know, what we can do or should do, and just, you know, doing what's right and what feels right.
Jake, thanks so much for taking the time to be on Mosh Talks today, man. I'll let you get on. Thank you.
All right, man. Hey, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Cheers.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, if you look really closely there, you can see the heart eyes emoji taking over my face. Yes, I'm a fanboy, but, you know, whatever. Jacob Bannon rules. That new Converge material for Blood Moon sounds off the scale brilliant. The peerless Chelsea Wolf will also be involved in that. And yeah, he's in a band with Dave from Megadeth now, because sure, why not? Jacob Bannon rules, Death Wish Records rules, open invite, come back anytime. Okay, this coming Friday on Knotfest.com, I'm going to be hosting a very special event, In Flames live at Varken. We are going to be streaming that entire set on Knotfest.com. That is taking place at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Central European time. That is 7 p.m. in the UK. Knotfest.com to check out the whole set of In Flames from Varken in 2018. Varken in Germany is one of the biggest heavy metal festivals in the world. They do not suffer fools there. So to headline that festival multiple times, you have got to have it. And In Flames are a band that have it in spades. Here I am talking to Anders from the band, because also on Friday, the band are going to be announcing some very special celebrations about their Claimant album that turns 20 this year. So here I am getting inside arguably that album's biggest track. I really love the title track, though, I've got to be honest. It is only for the week that we are going behind the song on this week. Here I am, Beez, on Mosh Talks with Anders from In Flames. Okay, so I'm joined by Anders from In Flames. Of course, we are going to be showing on Knotfest.com in 3 days' time. This Friday, we're going to be showing their entire set from Varken in 2018. And before we just started recording, we were talking about In Flames are a touring band. Have you spoken to any of the other guys in the band? Are you kind of all feeling it, that, like, let me out, I want to be back on stage?
Oh yeah, 100%. Everybody want to go out there and play. That's what we do. As I said to you, and I will tell to everyone else, like, we are a touring band. You know, we love being in the studio. We love to create music. It's awesome. But to be out there and meet the fans and play the shows, so that's why I joined the band to begin with. You know, that's yeah. Not everything, but almost everything for us.
I could imagine that. And we are doing like this live stream, as I mentioned, on Friday. How would you say that you've changed as a live band on stage over the years? Because musically, we'll get into shortly, like creatively, In Flames have gone in many different directions, but specifically the live show. How would you say the live show has changed?
It's difficult. I mean, as I said earlier, it's probably easier for people that follow us for a long, long time. I think I am more in the moment today than I ever been. You know, I love that space. I love being on stage, but I'm very, very much in the moment with the audience and what we're doing ourselves. We are hopefully better musicians, and it's more relaxed. It's a more relaxed feeling. You know, it's have a good vibe going on stage. Everybody feels, you know, super psyched going out and play these songs for our fans, and it's a better atmosphere in general. And I guess that comes with, you know, both with experience with age and doing it so much, you know.
I guess this Friday is actually a big day for In Flames because you've got something coming specifically with Clayman. When you reminisce about the early 2000s, what are the overwhelming emotions that come out about that particular period of time?
I don't remember that much. That's the problem. Been so many beers in between that time and today. No, I mean, we were still, you know, a very hungry band. We love what we were doing. I think, I mean, we got recognition outside of Europe. We got to America, played shows, and you know, we feel like we established our name more and more. But that's how we felt, how we'd been, you know, feeling with every single album, and just working hard, you know. Yeah, but it was great, good times, you know. That's how it is. That's how it always feels, you know, and that's the way it should feel. Otherwise, you should just quit, I guess, you know.
I agree. It should be enjoyment at all times. I wanted to talk to you specifically about Only for the Week, actually, just for this feature that we do at the end of the show every week. What is it about that particular song? Because when I look at Spotify, it is the second biggest of all of the In Flames songs, behind only Cloud Connected in terms of listens. What is it about that particular song, Only for the Week, that you feel really connected with people and has continued to do so to this day, with it being now 20 years since that song?
I mean, we played that song pretty much every night since we released the album. But it's an easygoing song, easy to get into, but it has that In Flames vibe, the melody, the aggression, and the tempo is right. You can jump to it. It's usually go down really well when we play live. It's one of the highlights of the night, I should say. It has become a fan favorite for sure. You don't really know that when you record. You know, you don't know. I mean, it was one of the songs that I think I was struggling the most when we recorded that. I didn't know what to do really, and then after a while, it's like start to sinking, and you start, get the right vibe, so to speak. And you know, here we are, as you say, many years later. It's one of the most streamed songs that we have, and yeah, crazy what happens.
What did you struggle with that particular song? Because I think the early 2000s and In Flames is a particularly fascinating thing, because I don't feel it's too controversial to say that a lot of bands were taking some heavy influence from In Flames in the early 2000s, and Only for the Week at that particular time and the couple of years afterwards felt like there was a slight shift creatively from In Flames. Is that fair?
No.
Feel free, fight fire back if you don't agree.
No. I mean, I don't. I mean, we've always had the same attitude when it comes to our songs. You know, we always want to create the best possible In Flames songs, and obviously, things change, for sure. But it's not like we sit down and have this strategic plan before we go into to do an album and say, oh, we should do this direction and this direction, whatever. And it's just things happen. I don't know what it is, and I like that it's different. I like that every album sounds a little bit different. You know, but we don't. For the weeks, the struggle, I mean, it's easier for me if there's a fast-paced song and it's something that we've done, you know, 100 times, and then just to go in and scream, and that's it. With Only for the Week, it's a more melodic, more open song, I would say. I guess that's how I felt back then. You gotta, because I want to make the song. I mean, the music is great. I want to do something good as well. So I don't want to fuck up the whole song, and therefore, I mean, it was a struggle. It was a struggle for sure, but it turned out good, and yeah, I still love playing it. You know, it's not we play it live and I go like, oh fuck, we have to play that again. It feels really, really good.
Do you think it's one of the songs that was pivotal in moving into other areas? One of the things that you are saying there is like, when you're used to the fast stuff, once you try your hand at something that is a bit new and it goes over like Only for the Weak did it give you confidence to kind of do more of this stuff moving forward? Because I feel like that song on that record is kind of a big moment for In Flames.
I don't know, man. I mean, it's as I said, we tried every album. We tried to do something a little bit different, and I think we've always been open to not just being. I mean, we've never been a brutal death metal band, but we've been open more and more to a little bit more. I don't know how to call it. It's like, I see our band as a gateway into more extreme music. Like, if we are the first heavier metal band you hear, and then you can go on to listen to way heavier, that's awesome. That's something that would make me proud. Like we are an introduction to heavy metal, and that would be awesome. And I think Only for the Weak is such a song. It has a brutality, but it's definitely super melodic and very accessible, you know. But I mean, I think that's who we are. That's what we In Flames are. The melody and the aggression combined.
Like, I think that I wanted to ask you about one of the recent tours that you did. You literally opened with arguably your three biggest songs, like Cloud Connected, into Only for the Weak, into Take This Life. Like, they are three massive hitters. What was the thinking behind that, you complete maniacs?
Yeah, we have another 17 greatest hits after that.
Yeah. I love that. And does it get easier putting together set lists, or is it an exciting thing now that you've got all of this wealth of material and mood comes into play and what you want to play? Like, is the set list a nightmare? I would imagine it is these days.
I mean, for us, I don't think it's such a nightmare. I mean, it is difficult to please everyone in the audience, to make everyone happy. It's like, I heard my favorite and now I am 100% happy. I mean, that gets more and more difficult, I guess, because we always want to promote the latest album. That's how it's always been. And obviously the set leans more towards the later career, so to speak. But we try to combine and then play songs from every album. Even that gets more and more difficult, especially if you're an opening act and you have 30 minutes or 40 minutes and to cover your whole career, when we have like 12 or 13 whatever album we have, that gets difficult. But for us, it's just, you know, we need to play something that we like, and we want to play something that we hope that audience likes, and if we are true to ourselves, I think everyone will be happy.
I agree. And like, when it comes to the set list, do you ever decide by region as well? Because again, it's a fascinating thing for In Flames. Like, different regions associate In Flames with different things, it feels. Does that come into play, or is it just, we're In Flames, we're rolling into town, and this is who we are right now?
Pretty much. I mean, I think that's how we treat it. And I mean, we never do encores. We've never done that, really, because we think that we give everything 100% instead of give 80% and then kind of wait at the audience and then we walk right back inside. That would just feel stupid. So no, I think we treat it like, here we are, this is it, take it or leave it, sort of. Hopefully take it.
Well, you guys can all take it this coming Friday on Knotfest.com, and right here on the Knotfest YouTube channel, we are going to be showing In Flames' full live set from Wacken in 2018. Anders, thanks so much for your time today, man. And I didn't want to push you on it too much because I know the news is coming in a couple of days' time. But when whatever is happening this summer with the Clayman reissue, come back and we'll talk at length about that record.
Sounds like a plan, man.
Thank you.
I'll be right here in my studio waiting.
Cheers, mate. See you soon.
Bye-bye, man.
Don't forget then, this Friday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Central European Time, or 7 p.m. in the UK. This Friday, In Flames live from Varken 2018, only at Knotfest.com. I myself will be back on Knotfest.com next Tuesday with another Mosh Talks. I think it's going to be a pretty intense Mosh Talks next week, and that's all I can say about it. But we'll see you next Tuesday on Knotfest.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a comment, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time out. Bye.